We had breaking news over the weekend with the story with the war with Venezuela, which the mainstream media is very hesitant to call. But we've got the largest aircraft carrier in the world that's now being deployed to the Caribbean. So if that's not like a pretext for war, I'm not sure what is. But the breaking news on the Venezuela situation is the State Department intends to designate Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization, FTO. Headed by the illegitimate Nicolás Maduro, the group has corrupted the institutions of government in Venezuela and is responsible for terrorist violence conducted by and with other designated FTOs, as well as for trafficking drugs into the United States and Europe. Now, if you've been paying any kind of attention to what's going on in Venezuela, you might know that the Cartel of the Suns, or the Cartel de los Soles, is a purely fabricated CIA construct. And if this is news to you, you're probably going to be hearing a lot more about it because there are journalists that are covering this and talking about it more and more. Mainstream hasn't picked up on it yet, but basically in the 90s, the CIA created this Cartel of the Suns. And there's a wild whole other story about that we're not going to get into today. But I did want to share one of the comments under this thread because Max Blumenthal is one of the journalists that's really knowledgeable and has been following what's going on in Venezuela very closely. And he replied to Marco Rubio's tweet saying, "Will you designate the CIA as a terror org? Because it was the CIA which created Cartel de los Soles in the early 1990s to ship 22 tons of drugs into the U.S. Today, the Cartel of the Suns does not exist. It is a fantasy. You're spinning another WMD fraud." And his tweet is like blowing up. His reply, it's got 11,000 likes. So people are really paying attention. And also Ben Norton, another renowned journalist who's been covering Venezuela and South America at large. I'll just quickly read his reply as well. "The so-called Cartel de los Soles or Suns Cartel does not exist. This was admitted by many mainstream media outlets. Trump and Marco Rubio are trying to justify their neo-colonial war of aggression on Venezuela by falsely claiming Maduro is a, quote, narco-terrorist. It's WMDs 2.0. So again, kind of echoing the same sentiments. And here he's got some screenshots and examples of some outlets that have been talking about there's no such thing as the Cartel of the Suns. Experts say there's no evidence of a group of that name. Cartel de los Soles per se doesn't exist. That's from CNN. Many other experts on Venezuela organized crime say no such cartel exists. So the news media is kind of starting to pick up on this, which I think is fantastic because it's not a very widely known thing. But what's crazy about this whole story and this announcement is it kind of relates to the original indictment of Maduro in 2020 under Trump's first term, where they indicted him as basically a drug leader, drug lord, and they tied him to the Cartel of the Suns. So their formal indictment ties him to a cartel that does not exist. It's a CIA fabrication. So if any of you guys out there are believing the mainstream narrative or the official narrative that the war in Venezuela is about drugs, it's absolutely not. In fact, it's almost certainly 100% about oil and regime change. And if you just have that in the back of your mind while you see all this play out, it all paints a very clear picture. And let me actually show you a quote from Trump. This was, I think this was during the campaign, while he was campaigning for his second term. He openly admits the real reason. Check this out.
"How about we're buying oil from Venezuela? When I left, Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil. It would have been right next door."
So there's Trump once again saying the quiet part out loud. This whole regime narco-terrorist, where, preventing drugs and all that stuff, it's all nonsense. It's all a cover-up. And if Trump's word accidentally spilling the truth isn't enough for you, here is Marina Corina Machado, who is the recent Nobel Peace Prize winning person who's actually the leader of the opposition in Venezuela, who's been backed by the U.S. for the past 20 years, 20 odd so years, because they want to install her as the puppet. They want her to be the U.S. puppet of Venezuela, either as president or vice president. And she's the leader of the opposition party. She was on with Don Jr., Donald Trump's son, talking about once again the oil and the real winners of this war. Check this out.
Forget about Saudi Arabia. Forget about the Saudis. I mean, we have more oil. I mean, infinite potential. And we're going to open markets. We're going to kick off the government from the oil sector. We are going to privatize all our industry. Venezuela has huge resources: oil, gas, minerals, land, technology. And as you said before, we have a strategic location, hours from the United States. So we're going to do this right. We know what we have to do. And American companies are in, super strategic position to invest. This country, Venezuela, is going to be the brightest opportunity for investment of American companies, of good people that are going to make a lot of money.
So there she is saying, once again, the quiet part out loud. It's all about oil. It's all about enriching U.S. investment. It's all about regime change and installing a puppet in Venezuela. And all of this is coming off the heels of at least 3 documented coup attempts of Venezuela. The first one occurred in 2002, 3 years after Hugo Chavez had a revolutionary election in that country. The people's president. He was briefly ousted for about 2 or 3 days with the backing and the help of the U.S. government and the opposition's forces. He was reinstated, however, because most everyone in that country was like, what the hell are you doing? He's our president. Put him back in power. There's no way that was going to sustain. So that was the first coup attempt, 2002, under the Bush administration. Second coup attempt was under Trump in 2019. This was when they tried to instate a man called Juan Guaido as the quote-unquote interim sitting president when they tried to basically call Maduro illegitimate. And this guy that they tried to instate as their puppet leader over there, Guaido, he had never participated in an election in Venezuela. Not one single election, never got a single vote. And the U.S. tried to basically install him. That didn't work out well, similar to what happened in 2002. And then the following year, 2020, the third coup attempt was basically a more covert mercenary operation. And the journalist Max Blumenthal, who was one of the replies to that X post that I showed on screen, he actually interviewed Maduro a couple years ago. And he also interviewed the guy who led that mercenary operation, who's now like under federal charges. He's like fighting the U.S. government now. It's an insane side story and other completely whole segment that might be worth covering in the future. But anyways, those 3 coup attempts are fairly well documented, and we know that the U.S. had some, if not most, of the involvement in those. And so this that we're seeing what's going on in Venezuela today is basically just a continuation of that effort of trying to regime change, trying to extract the oil and natural resources from Venezuela, and trying to pressure their government to basically sell out their country for American imperialism, and it's really sad what's happening over there, and it sucks because if you know anything about the history of American imperialism, the civil wars that are a result of the efforts of coups and regime changes can be really brutal on the population, because you have some people who are buying the propaganda, some people who are like, yay, and others who are like, no, this is our elected government, this is our people, we don't want foreign investment, we don't want foreign powers meddling in our country. And that causes really, really heightened tensions among the population and the voters and everybody. And it can lead to a civil war. So the latest, that's what's happening now in Venezuela. Trump also just posted that I think it was in an interview, someone asked him about it, and he said the latest was he's open to talks with Maduro, which is really strange because they've got all this military stuff going over there, the aircraft carriers, B-2 bombers. They've amassed like 10 to 12,000 troops, and now he's talking about, well, previously he was talking about Maduro's days are numbered. Lindsey Graham was all excited about Maduro's going to be gone or whatever. And now it looks like they're saying, well, now they're open to talks or open to negotiations. So they seem to not have a very firm plan in place about what they're doing over there. It seems kind of just like off the cuff kind of stuff. But this latest announcement and designation by Marco Rubio's State Department basically allows them to perform more acts without having to go through Congress and doing it quote unquote more legally. So it basically gives them more power to do, whatever they want to do, targeted strikes or send in armed forces or whatever. Since they are now designating this group, quote unquote group, as a foreign terrorist organization, it basically opens the legal doors to more stuff. So that's where we are now with the current state of Venezuela. And we'll be watching this very closely as we continue keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely reminds me a lot of Iraq, seeing the comparisons about not only the propaganda, but also the motivations for it. It's also interesting because I found it kind of noteworthy that in 2002 there was a coup attempt. And then after that, we invade Iraq. So I don't know any specifics about it, but we invaded Iraq in 2003, but there was a coup attempt in Venezuela in 2002. So clearly we were fishing for oil somewhere, and we probably figured, it'll be easier here than over there. And I don't know if it was necessarily trying to do both at the same time, but it could have been like we tried in Venezuela, and since we failed, let's reroute over somewhere else. But this is pure speculation. I don't have anything to like back up those claims, but it would be interesting to kind of dig into that and see, like, is there any correlation between the two? Because it seems pretty sus, pretty likely.
Yeah, and the U.S. has is known for having a history of just being oil hungry for the past however many decades. So it is no surprise. And given the fact, I didn't mention this, but this is actually really important, that Venezuela has the #1 oil reserves on the entire planet.
Right. They mentioned they have more than Saudi.
Yeah, more than the Middle East. So the singular country with the most oil is Venezuela. It is close to the U.S. So, of course, the U.S., from a purely strategic standpoint, are keeping close tabs on that for economic reasons. But it's really so much darker than economics. It's just putting so many people through so much misery. It's starting another war, which this administration campaigned on being the pro-peace ticket. And it's not good for anyone other than the oil investors, which are, large corporations, U.S. corporations.
Which already have billions and billions anyway.
Exactly. Just expanding their already insane wealth. No ordinary people are really benefiting from this, and innocent people are getting killed in the process. I mean, these boats that they've been attacking, they're up to like 21 or 26 boats now. I think close to 80 people killed. There's zero evidence that these are drug trafficking boats, and more than likely they are fishing boats, because if they were guilty, then they would apprehend them. They would take them down. They would show the evidence. They would say, look at this bust. That would be a message to all the other people thinking about smuggling drugs into this country. But no, instead they just blow them up and say, we got another one. And clearly those efforts are not working because they're still blowing up boats. Like, the message is not getting across. So it's just really sad to see everything that's happening over there. And hopefully this somehow turns good. But I feel for the people of Venezuela because they've already been struggling mainly due to the sanctions that America has put on that country for the past couple of decades. And if this war continues and God forbid they assassinate or take out Maduro, things are probably only going to get far, far worse for those people.